Good morning. I am Bob Earl. I am an alcoholic and an addict. I was sitting there trying to figure out how Walt's giving away to this guy a full set of the conference when I didn't speak yet. I'd check and see what tape is in there if I was you. I may have been 12 years old or something when I gave the talk. Well, a Sunday morning spiritual meeting, huh? This is, sobriety seems to have been for me and my friends who have been here a while doing this thing. My ex-wife came up with a term for it, and we all concur, and that is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And I think for an awful lot of us, and I'm one, in the very beginning, when they said, everything's going to be okay, I heard I would never hurt again. You know? So instead of hearing everything's going to be okay, I'm thinking, hey, this is good. I've had enough emotional pain to last me 14 lifetimes. And unfortunately, of course, that's not what's being said. It just said everything's going to be okay. And I would like to say, from my perspective now at 38 years, no, everything isn't going to be okay. Not on your life. Man, you will run into an occasional shitstorm that'll just make you wonder why you got up that day or opened the mail or whatever it is, you know. But it'll come. But the difference for me is with the program, being a member of the program, is that even when I get hit with one of those storms, I'm okay. See, that's the difference. And I never was okay. That was always a problem. You know, I was not okay. I was loaded, whacked out. I was my problem. Well, I still am. I mean, I've long talked about the vulture on the headboard in the morning. I can say that after 38 years, he's not really there anymore. He's waiting about 4 steps away from the bed, but at least... At least I get the first 4 steps in before he starts with, well, you didn't get enough sleep, you're too tired. Can't go to work today, but if you don't go, you're going to get fired, and you haven't saved any money, and so you're going to be living in the streets. And that bump below your knee isn't from hitting the coffee table, it's bone cancer. So how are you going to handle today, huh? No one is able to scare me like I am able to scare me. I mean, I think, basically my thinking is about scaring me. Whether it's compulsive or obsessive or whatever it might be at the time, I just scare myself to death with my thinking. And it's like a mugger. You know, you ever notice it's like driving down the street, man, and whap! I'm on the freeway, and for no reason at all, I get hit with, I remember that I've got a year's worth of taxes at 7 years old that I haven't filed. Now, there's no reason on God's earth for that to come up at that moment other than to just scare myself to death, you know. I'm not in an accountant's office. I'm not where I can do anything about it. I'm just driving down the street, man, and there it comes, you know. So, it's like I got up to the room last night, I was looking through my stuff, I thought, oh God, I didn't bring the shirt I wanted to wear. I thought, well, that's okay, I'll just wear the Pendleton and a t-shirt. Then I got the t-shirt on this morning, and I looked, and there's 2 spots right here. Now, I don't know about any of the rest of you, but that wore me out, the 2 spots. You know, I'm thinking, well, I can wear the one from last night. It's yellow, but it's got more than 2 spots because and it's not going to clean up as nice. I thought, well, I can take my badge and I can put it over, pin it right in the center of my T-shirt. I'm absolutely wearing myself out over 2 lousy little spots on my T-shirt. So to be able to speak at a spiritual meeting is a good thing for me because I really need God. I couldn't make it if there wasn't some really, really powerful spiritual force available to me here. I wouldn't make it. The days are too long, I can't let anything go. He handed the guy from central office, the cash in a plain brown manila envelope, I thought, I'm gone, I'm gone. Cash in an envelope, and well, he could go spend it if he wanted, just gone, Whatever the hell was going on up here, I'd left, I'd left. That's another one of my favorite pastimes. Leave my body whenever humanly possible. Get out of the room. Get gone. Just get gone. Avoid that intimate kind of conversation, communication at all costs, whatever I can do, because I don't know how to do it, and it's embarrassing or it's painful. And I think one of the things is that, for me, is that fear of being humiliated. Public humiliation. That's a huge one for me. And yet, on the other hand, I'll talk when asked. So that's sort of like, and as I'm prone to lose my thought and go off on tangents and all that, you'd think I would shut up and stay home. Being afraid of public humiliation, but it's more like getting caught, on a street corner with no clothes on. Sort of. As that kind of public humiliation. Being found out for the defective person that I think I am. And think is the operative word there. Being found out for the defective person that I think I am. But I've always believed that I am not enough. I believed that ever since I was old enough to believe anything. I'm not enough, I'm not sufficient. And so I had a tough first 15 years until I got marijuana and wine. And at 15, I'd already been thrown out of the Los Angeles City school system. Not just a school, the system. I had great difficulty getting went all the way back to the second grade. Basically, it just said, doesn't play well with others. You could just take that right on into high school. Boy, doesn't play well with others. Including the teachers. So they asked me to leave. And 3 days after I was thrown out of high school, I had some wine and some marijuana on the beach. I shouldn't have to tell anyone here but the Al-Anons what happened. For the first time in my life, I was comfortable in my body. The first time in my life, I was comfortable in my body. I felt okay. Everything was all right. That wasn't meant to be a derogatory remark, Al-Anons. It just meant that if you knew, you'd be doing it too. You had to watch us have all that fun. Oh my God. So, for 11 years, from 15 to 26, I did drugs and alcohol. And, that's it. That's my story. Now that we've covered what it used to be like. What happened? Went to jail a lot. What's it like now? I'm not in jail. If I get a little cynical in this talk, it's because I have been wrestling with just an absolute terror of a depression for about 18 months now. So I have a tendency occasionally to get a little cynical, only because it's just been so paralyzing to my life. Well, what are you doing about it, Bob? Well, I'm seeing the appropriate medical authorities is what I'm doing about it. But it's just been a long haul. And I don't like being depressed. Bums me out. God damn, being depressed depresses me. Can't give you any reason for it, but it's a clinical depression. You know, they can't decide if I'm manic depressive or bipolar 1 or 2. I keep asking them, telling them, you know, would somebody just throw a dart at a fucking board and pick one of them? You know. I don't like you trying to figure it out at my expense. But the one thing I do know and that I hold on to throughout all of it is that there is a loving God. And that God is taking care of me and is going to take care of me. And let me tell you, there have been some bad days. We're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 days at home, curled up in a ball in the corner of the couch, unable to move, unable to leave the house, unable to do anything, just frozen in one spot. And I'm a real active person, and so for Walt's known me for years. We've hung out and been friends, and he knows what my energy is like, which is intense usually. And I guess it's intense now too. It's just all turned inward. It's still intense. It's just the direction has changed. So I don't like this not being as active as I'd like to be. I am very intense, and I want my intensity back. I really do. My best friend is intense. He called me once about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. This is about 10 years ago. Screams into the phone. I'm so sick and fucking tired of women telling me I'm too intense I could shoot somebody. I said, Tommy, you are intense. Yeah? Why don't you just find somebody that likes intensity? You know? Instead of trying to change them. And he's done that, and they've been together about 5 years, and life's pretty good. All right, let's talk about how I know God's going to take care of me without my having to do anything. I was about 2 years sober, and I was having great difficulty with God, with praying, with having anything to do with God, because I had gotten the information early on that God was my Father. And that was not a good image to give me. You know, it was, I really wasn't even I wasn't even talking to the guy who gave me the image. I was talking to somebody else. But this was one of those people that we apparently have appointed in AA to give advice even when it's not asked for, you know. I want you to know we're designing an armband for them, so you'll see them coming, you know, across the room. So I was having a conversation about something with this guy, and this uninvited guest steps up and said, well, if that was my problem, I'd turn it over. And I liked that concept immediately, because I was new here, and I remember I didn't know what turn it over meant, but it had a nice ring to it. Turn it over. Give it away, basically, is what I'm hearing. Give it away. And I said, to who? He said, to God. And I said, who's God? I had no formal religious training as a child. And he said, God is your Father. my father died from alcoholism wasn't a good image. My father was a man whose attention I couldn't get. My father was a man who allowed me to be severely beaten and battered by my mother. I mean, I can go on and on with that stuff. But my father was not an image of a God that I wanted. You know, it just didn't work. So for a couple of years, I couldn't do anything about praying or surrendering or anything else until one night I was in a meeting and I heard this story, this Eskimo story. I don't know if everybody knows it or don't know it or what, but I love it because it's the basic foundation of my spiritual program. This guy tells a story about two men drinking in a bar in Alaska. One is an atheist and the other is a very religious man. Eventually their conversation swings around to God. And the atheist looks at the religious man and he says, I gave your God a chance to prove himself to me once and he didn't do it. The religious man says, well, in what manner did you give God a chance to prove himself? Atheist says, well, 6 months ago I was lost 150 miles north of town here in a blizzard. And I knelt down in the snow and looked at the sky and said, God, if you're there, I'm lost and I'm going to die. Religious man looks at him, smiles at this boy, very, very knowing smile, and he says, well, you must believe you're here. Guy said, nah, some goddamn Eskimo came along and showed me the way back to town. Well, that was one of them. I got the message loud and clear that God's number one instrument is people. People. And they just show up at the right time. Now, never mind, when I say the right time, please don't hear me say on a timetable I'm comfortable with. You know, because they're always late, as far as I'm concerned. You know, about a week to 10 days late. If they'd gotten there a little earlier, we could have just dealt with the problem a little quicker. Okay, so Eskimos. An Eskimo came along, showed him the way back to town. How did I get to AA? I was 26 years old and I was living in doorways in Pasadena. I had heard AA was a good thing, but I couldn't call because I'm not made up of the kind of whatever that asks anybody for help. I mean, where I grew up and the life I lived, you just didn't ask anyone for help. It was not... you know, if you got stabbed, you just excused yourself and got a rag. You know, it was basically, that was it. So asking for help is not it's just not in my toolbox. Today, more so than ever, but I think it's been 38 years to get to that point, you know. Okay, so I'm living in my doorways. I don't know what to do. I can't call central office even though I have a dime and have a phone number because it's calling somebody somewhere I don't know. One day, this shadow appears over me in my doorway, and this voice says, hey, if you don't have any place to stay, you can come stay with me and the old lady. And I look up, and here's a guy. He and his wife and 6 kids have been on welfare ever since I know him, some kind of subsistency. And I had laid a lot of money off on him, about $5,000. So it was okay to go with him. I could take his offer of help because he owed me. You know, that's the code of the streets, man. He owed me $5,000. It was his duty to take me out of that doorway and take me home and give me some help. So I went with him. And that night I'm sitting in his cockroach-infested... The 8 of them were living in this cockroach-infested one-bedroom apartment. And as I was usually in DTs around that time, I didn't know whose cockroaches were whose, you know. So you have to live with them, you know. I mean, because you can't be stomping on a clean floor. I mean, it was clear space. So I had to just live with them. So I'm sitting there telling him, I said, you know, one of these days, man, I got to do something about this drinking and drugging. I just got to do something. And he says, oh, there's a girl down the hall goes to AA. You'd have to see this apartment building to believe this. Well, I'm thinking, a girl? goes to AA? What on God's earth does a girl who goes to AA look like? You know? I couldn't even imagine. Gravel Gertie was the best I could come up with. You gotta remember, this is 1962, man. There weren't, starlets on the cover of Vogue who were announcing their newfound sobriety. The concept was just old, beaten up women and drunk in their house coat, coming to meetings. So I went down the hall. I had to see who it was. It's my curiosity. This is God using those parts of me for His benefit, to then benefit me too. He usually uses my character defects for His benefit. I go down the hall and knock on the door, and the girl that opened this door was big enough to break every bone in my body. She stood about 6'2", 6'3", weighed about 235. She was built like a professional football fullback. Just solid goddamn muscle. She had short black hair and tattoos down both arms and both legs. And this is long before it was fashionable. Okay? Like 20 years before it was fashionable. She has in her hand a half-full pint of booze. This is my introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous. And we wander around, worrying about, careful what you say. Oh, we better take the newcomer to this meeting instead of this meeting. Oh, God. Where do you think they're coming from, for God's sakes? Where do you think they've been recently? It's incredible. I looked at her, and it was like street people. For me, it was perfect. I could talk to her. I've lived my life at that point around these people for 11 years. I looked her dead in the eyes and I said, I'm curious about this AA thing. And she looked me dead in the eyes and said, AA will work if you want it, and I'm not ready to quit drinking. Made perfect sense to me. I'm standing there 135 pounds, 6 feet tall. She's standing there 6'2", 235 pounds. She weighed 100 pounds more than me. I was sick. I was done. I was well done, actually. I was finished. And so I figured, you know what? If I looked like you and had your strength, I'd keep drinking too. I didn't come in here with a desire to get sober. I came in here with a desire to stop dying. That's it. But anyway, so she felt responsibility to AA for the sobriety she had, stuck me in a car, took me to a meeting. And that was the beginning of my sobriety, August 28th, 1962. Eskimos, always showing up, always at the right time. I remember one day when two friends of mine and I were going to get together and have breakfast. And everything kept going wrong. We had some individual errands to run first, and everything kept going wrong. The one guy's car wasn't ready, my cleaning wasn't ready, or the one shirt I really needed wasn't ready. It was like we kept calling each other back and forth, and we were like an hour and a half behind our schedule for this brunch. Not that we had anything to do after this brunch, we had just made this arbitrary time, and we were behind. So we thought we'd get to the restaurant, and just as we get into the restaurant parking lot, there, standing on the street corner, is a guy who knows the three of us. We were his three favorite people in AA, and he was just getting ready to get in the car and drive down to the beach and blow his brains out. We thought we were an hour and a half late. Yeah? We weren't. We were right on time. Right on time, showed up exactly the right time, the right place. I'm trying to think of other Eskimo examples other than how I started writing. Oh, God, Joyce. Of course. We have in AA a carved in concrete thing about don't get emotionally involved your first year. I have no idea where that came from. Perhaps somebody who can't have a relationship. But I've got no idea where that came from. Because I'm of the opposite school, actually. I think being emotionally involved is good. If it's put in your path. One thing for sure, you'll spend more time with your sponsor. You might get away with a phone or one or two phone calls a week, but you get involved and you'll be one or two phone calls a day. When I was 3 weeks sober in AA in Pasadena, I was asked to give a 10-minute talk at the Arroyo Seco meeting of AA. I figured, what the hell? Still didn't have a sponsor yet. Couldn't find one. You know what they do? They ask you, tell me a little about yourself, and I would, and then they go away somewhere else. So I give my talk, and in the meeting is this absolutely stunning blonde, about 6, 7 years older than me, about 5, 10 or 11, just gorgeous. And after the meeting, she comes up to me. She has 3 months of sobriety, so she's an old-timer compared to me. And this is a true story. There are friends around who know this story. She comes up to me after the meeting and informs me that her sponsor told her if she heard anything she liked to take it home. There should have been some kind of a warning in there somewhere for me, but I said, yeah, okay. Made great sense to me, you know. I was living with these 2 guys painting their damn house for pocket money and cigarette money, you know. So 2 weeks after we go out to her place, and, you know, for 2 weeks we barely come up for air. And shortly after that, a few days after that, she has a complete emotional breakdown and lands in a private psychiatric hospital. And I'm like, screwed. I don't know what to do. You know, I feel responsible and I don't know what to do. I don't have a sponsor, so I don't have anybody to talk to. And she's in this very fancy, very lovely psychiatric hospital. So I go there every day, and we sit by the pool, and we plan the rest of our lives together with God, AA, and the 12 steps. I know. Well, see, it's kind of what I thought sober sex was going to be like anyway. You know. I mean, because I was thinking about that a lot after I started going to meetings about how do you do this sober. And I thought, well, you just kind of come together like, you know, 2 trains, you know, just driven by lust. And then after a couple of weeks, one of you will lose your mind. And the other one just goes on, you know. So we'd sit in this psychiatric hospital and plan the rest of our lives. Thank you. We had one of those, we got married, it was one of those gunpoint marriages, so to speak, you know. Either you marry me or no more sex. And I thought, oh God, I can't go through this again, you know. I don't want to do a repeat of the first part of this. It's kind of like, you know, doing AA over again. You know, screw that. I'll just stay here with what's comfortable. It's amazing how comfortable we can get in our discomfort, isn't it? So we got married, and we had one of those marriages that just burned out everybody, you know. By the time we'd been together a year and a half, everyone we knew said to us, we just broke up again one more time. And they all said, if you go back together one more time, we're not speaking to you again, ever. So, of course, you know what we had to do. I mean, it's like guaranteed. We had to do it one more time. Then we didn't see each other for about 10 years. Even though we're both in Los Angeles, both going to meetings in Los Angeles, just didn't see each other for about 10 years. And I was out at this clubhouse in Burbank to speak, and the room's about the size of this. Seems to me, it used to be. And I'm like in this corner, and I spot her over there in that corner, and we take off across this Alano Club like a Clairol commercial, you know. And we wrap ourselves around each other, and at the same time, we both say the same thing. Thank you for being part of saving my life. See, we had new information now. It was 10 years later now. I got it that she trusted everybody. I trusted nobody. You know, she third day of sobriety, she gave some guy a head in the front seat of his car outside the meeting because he convinced her that one of the problems that alcoholic women have is they're sexually repressed. Now, if you're that naive, you need help. You know, here. So I was going to be her bodyguard in that sense. I, on the other hand, didn't even talk to people at meetings. So she trusted everybody. I didn't trust anybody. And we were a match made in heaven. And then I would see that we read the big book every day. And I would see that we read the 24-hour day book every night. And I'd see that we read the 12 and 12 every morning before we went out to work. And I saw that we got to a meeting every night for her. Really, for her. She's the one that had been in the psychiatric hospital. She's the one that needed the help. For her. And what I now knew, 10 years later, as I stood there with her and she stood there with me, was we were a perfect match. I'm an injustice collector, and I had her to take care of. And if I hadn't had her to take care of, I probably wouldn't have stayed sober. Because I didn't care enough about myself to go to the lengths I would have needed to go to in order to stay sober. I wouldn't have been able to do it. Too much. But you give me somebody else, like her, and I can do it. So we were both sober. Okay. Eskimos. When this end in about 15 minutes? No? I had become convinced that somewhere in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous there was a secret phrase, secret instructions written in there, or that somebody had them somewhere. I sat down literally and read the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with a black light. Looking for the secret phrase in invisible ink. I didn't get here well, let me tell you, man. And I live with this thing on a daily basis, moment to moment. Because I just knew that there were a few people I would meet here and there that just seemed to have something that I couldn't get. And I couldn't figure out what it was. So when I'm 4 years sober, a little over 4 years sober, 6 of us went back to Denver for an international convention, young people's convention. And we were there about a week or so, whatever it was. And when we were leaving the convention, or actually leaving this clubhouse on York Street, We turned the corner and the tire rod on the front of the car broke. Brand new car. No reason for the tire rod to break. Okay. The guy and his wife pull up right behind us. Pull in right behind us. Okay, now, even though I'm only 4 years sober, I get it. Eskimo, right? Car's broken, here he comes. I can spot him now. I just am not always accurate as to what message they're going to bring. So anyway, he says, well, look, we can't get your car fixed today, but we can get it towed in. We'll get it towed in, and you guys can stay with us. And we'll put you on the road to California tomorrow and pack you lunch after the car's fixed. So we said, great. So we got a tow truck, and he took the girls out to the house first and then came back and got us guys. And we pull in the driveway in this big house in Cherry Hills in Denver. Gorgeous house. Oh, God, it was beautiful. And later that night, we're all sitting around this big oak table, having coffee. And he looks at me and he says, I was really glad to hear you talk about drugs at the convention. And I'm thinking, what does Charlie Snowshoes in Denver, Colorado want to know about dope? You know? Unless he's got an adolescent locked in the closet or something. I mean, I couldn't figure it out. And I said, why? He said, I'm a heroin addict. He said, I did time in Quentin and time in Folsom and had real trouble with this program. He said, I got to Denver 2 days over 4 years ago, and in desperate need of help. And he said, I remembered what AA had said about if you want what we have. And Mother here was working behind the counter in the clubhouse, Skid Row clubhouse, serving food. And people had said, I wanted what she had, and with her, I knew that I could stay clean and sober. Now I'm sitting there listening to him. This house is so big. None of the six of us were in a relationship with another one. And they put all six of us in beds without inconveniencing any family member. Monstrous, gorgeous house. And I'm thinking, I got him. God gave him to me. This is the guy who is going to tell me what the hell the secret phrase is. Right? Because there's no way for him to get from where he started to where he is without knowing what the secret phrase is. So I said, would you mind explaining all of this to me? And he looks at me and he smiles and takes his wife's hand and he says, well, Mother and I take the third step every morning and we go to a lot of meetings. I got hysterical. I got absolutely hysterical. I laughed so hard, I cried, I sobbed. Because I'm like 4 years sober, and for the first time I heard the third step. Made a decision to turn the will in our lives over to the care of God, so we understood Him, whatever it is. Period. It doesn't say minus money, minus relationships, minus this, minus any. It doesn't say minus anything. It says just throw in the towel. I come back to California, and we get back the next day. I'm working as a die caster in this company. I go to work, come home that night, sitting in my little apartment, and I'm like emotionally dead, burned out, worn out. I've been thinking for 4+ years, with no relief. I'm just exhausted. And I look at the ceiling in my room and I just go, if you're not there, I'm fucked. God didn't mind the prayer. I hope it didn't offend you. It was absolute desperation. I go to work the next day and in a very freak accident that can't happen, happens. And I fall against one of the furnaces of molten metal and crush 2 vertebrae in my back. They take me to the emergency hospital. And they're telling me all this crap about I can't stand for long periods of time and I can't lift and blah. Just bullshit. Anyway. And the doctors all leave the cubicle, and my mind, you see, always there to support me in any way it can. My mind says, we surrendered to God last night and broke our back. Why don't we try again? Maybe we can wind up... Why don't we try again? Maybe we can wind up in a wheelchair. And I was so burned out from thinking, so completely burned out, I decided that, who knows, maybe this is a good deal. Maybe having back broken is just fine. And that I don't know. I don't know. So I went about doing everything they wanted me to do. You know, I got my braces to wear on my back. I went to physical rehabilitation, went to vocational rehabilitation. And here's where we ran into some problems. Vocational rehabilitation and I had difficulties. Because they kept giving me these aptitude tests and I kept coming out different. And I wasn't running a game on them. I really, honest to God, wasn't. I mean, yeah, I've been known to do that in the past with different agencies. But I wasn't running a game on them. I swear to God. I was being honest that day. You know? And that day I might have liked the outdoors. You know? And next month when I came back to take the test, I may not have liked the outdoors. You know? So I just came up different, you know. Plumber one month to forest ranger the next, you know. It's incredible. Just incredible. Anyway, after 6 months of this crap with Voc Rehab, I'm sitting in my living room and one night, in the TV guide there's an ad about, do you want to be a writer, or something about writing. And a little voice down here, somewhere in here, said, let's try this. And this voice immediately stepped in and reminded me that I'd failed English ever since the first time they gave it to me. I was a phonetic speller and they'd thrown me out of school. I thought, man, I'm just going to do this. So I took all the paperwork into Voc Rehab, and what God really had basically done is He outweighed bureaucracy. See? I was the black mark on the books of the Voc Rehab in Van Nuys. Everybody else that came in the time I had been placed at least 3 months ago. But not me, right? And so when I gave first the paperwork to my counselor, she got hysterical. She thought it was funny, too. Her and my mind could have gone to lunch together. So she takes the paperwork, and she said, we don't pay for correspondence courses. She takes the paperwork into her boss, and he says, yeah, fine, cool, get him books. Give him his check, get him out of here. See, he would have paid for basket weaving for me. Just to get rid of me. God worked it out. Took some time, a few months, to make the stuff happen. Well, I get my books, and I start to read them. And I start to write a short story about a drug connection in a drive-in eatery. It's terrible. It's really awful. But as I'm reading my books, it says you should write for a medium that you're familiar with. And I had read very little in my life, and so I said, well, okay, screw that, I'll write for television. So I turn on TV, and I figure I'll write a Bonanza. So I try and write a Bonanza script. Oh, God, it was bad. Oh, God, it was bad. And then as I read on in my books some more, it says not only should you write for a medium that you're familiar with, it's essential you write about a topic you're familiar with. And I thought, oh, well, crime, you know. So so I start to watch all the cop shows and settle in on Ironsides, which is the one that's, seems to be the most intelligent, and go to work trying to write a story for that. And one night, a guy's bring me. I don't have a car. I was bankrupt 4 years sober because I'd been handling my money. And living alone. I'd been handling my relationships. I was bankrupt, living alone. It's a long story. I just trashed my whole life in 4 years. It was interesting. Anyway. Okay, so... okay. So I didn't have a car still. I'd lost my car in a bankruptcy. And this guy was bringing me home for the meeting. And Jim we're still great friends. And he says to me, what are you doing? Oh, I never asked people what they did in AA. I never wanted to know what you did for your living. Because I knew my mind would use it. So that if the vice president of the bank came up to me after the meeting and a plumber came up to me after the meeting and both wanted to go to coffee, the plumber's screwed. I'll fix my own plumbing, but the banker, I may be able to use him one of these days. So I never asked anybody what they did. I just didn't want to know. This guy says to me, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to write a story for television. He says, oh yeah, really? That's what I do. I said, what? He says, I write stories for television. Scripts. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, if you want, I'll look at yours when you're done. I said, yeah, cool. I know Eskimos when I see them. So I finished the story. I give it to him. There's about 12 things he thinks should be changed. I change about 6 of them. Don't change the other 6. I've learned that's just choice, creative choice. He says to me after I got my changes made, he said, do you want to get it typed up? By somebody? Retyped? This is funny. I've never thought of this before, but, the thing of Eskimos and all that. When we went to the high school, they take you to the high school you're going to go to before you go there, before you actually get there. And because I lived on a borderline situation in Los Angeles, there was only about 6 kids from my junior high that were going to go to Manual. So we went around together. We toured everything. We had to tour everything together. The girls had to go to body shop and auto shop, and we had to go to home ec and, whatever the hell else. And it just dawned on me now, the reason I type, and I type well, and the reason I type is when we were taking this little tour of the high school, we walked into the typing class. And there sitting in the typing class was about 20 of the best looking girls in manual arts, and not one guy. And I thought, what is this? And signed up for typing. I couldn't imagine no one was in the typing class. It was beyond me. So anyhow, he says, you want somebody to type this up? And I said, yeah, I don't think Universal knows that dead is spelled D-E-D. So he says, I have a girl on the program who does my typing for me. I could give it to her. I said, oh, that's cool. I like to see a girl on the program get the money. So he gives the story off, and I don't hear anything and don't hear anything. And 3 days go by, and my mind has got me berserk, wondering what I'm going to do with it now, and how am I going to get into the studio, and oh my God, you can imagine. You can just imagine. You've only heard a little bit of it up here. Girl calls me up after 3 days, and she said, I just finished, doing your story and reading it. And she said, it's very, very good. She said, did Jim tell you where I work? I said, no. She says, I'm secretary to the associate producer on Ironsides. Would you like me to take this in for you? Me worry? And I worry about things. I still worry about some things. Why on God's earth do I still worry? The Eskimos have always been there for me. Always been there for me. I really know that I am sober by grace. By grace. And it is the Eskimos that are. And it's gone like that. The whole writing thing went like that. I got hired. They let me do the script. They loved the first show so much they wanted to do the second show. And he says, come back Wednesday with an idea. I said, okay. Of course, I go home. It's the first time in 30 years my mind has been silent, All I need is one idea. That's all I want. That's all I need. Finally, I start watching TV to see if I can steal somebody else's idea. I'm just screwed. And it's public humiliation. I got to go back in there. Wednesday comes around, and I got to go back in and let them know I don't have an idea. And man, I'll tell you, it's one thing on earth I don't want to do. I don't want to do that. I just didn't want to be a one-shot, one-script kind of guy, And but I also had another tool from the program, and that is show up. Just show up. So I just showed up. I'm in his office. I walk in. He says, "Well, what'd you come up with?" And I go, "Well, I gave it a lot of thought, and I couldn't." He says, "Well, never mind." He said, "I've got an idea." He said, "We're a hit show. We have a responsibility to do some things that are important for public affairs." And he said, "I'd like to let's do a show on kids and drugs." I say to my head, "You couldn't come up with that?" You put me through all that agony and you couldn't come up with that? So I say to him, "Yeah, cool. Well, we can talk about thing and a thing and a thing and thing and thing. He says, "Whoa, wait a minute. How come you know so much about it?" I thought, "Oh, God." So I told him, and he says, and this is a great answer. This is a typical non-alcoholic, non-compulsive person's answer. I tell him, I was a drug addict and alcoholic, blah, 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 clean and sober, 5 years, whatever it was. And he says, "Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, you won't mind if we get a technical advisor for the show, will you?" I said, "No, that's fine." Tech advisor turned out to be a narcotics officer from Van Nuys who I had taken a shot at once. I said, "I'm surprised you're still a cop, man." He said, "I'm surprised you're still alive." That was the last conversation we had during the entire preparation of the show. It was constant, though, like the let's do adolescence and drugs. I mean, it was constant. It's been constant, and it's like it's okay. Now I wonder why. I mean, technically I'm retired, but from 30 years of writing. I mean, this is a kid who never got past the first half of the 10th grade, thrown out of school, and it was really a great career for me. Did I retire with lots of money? No, not really. I had a lot of relationships. They're expensive. So did I have fun? Oh, yes. You bet. By now, I'm frustrated because I'm not writing now. I want to write now, and the depression has got me too deep to write. I just can't write. And the reality is, I got to just relax. I'll write when I'm going to write here. I got to go through whatever it is I got to go through here. And I know, when I can remember it, that all the Eskimos I need will be put right in front of me as I go through this and come out the other side. And I don't doubt for a minute that there's another side and that I'll come out. So, there's a certain advantage to time here in the fellowship. It's knowing from experience what the truth is. And I get it from watching it in your life now as much as my own. That's why meetings are important. There's a lot of bullshit about medications today, whether people should take them or not take them or any of that. I won't get into it. It tells you, read page 132, 133 in the big book. It tells you very clearly to shut up. And I would suggest that if you're going to tell someone not to take their medication, you have at least minimum malpractice insurance. Okay? We're learning more about the chemical nature of alcohol and depression. That's all that's going on. Not a big deal. It's not going to burn or hurt anybody, I don't think, here. I've had a good time here. I've had a really good time. I had a good time last night Father Leo and I have known each other for years. I just adore him. Sorry I missed you, Teresa, but I had hoped to get out. The situation came up. I had a nice time. You guys are great. I love it out here in the thing. And I guess what is the byword of the spiritual meeting is keep your eyes open for Eskimos. You know, keep your eyes open for Eskimos, as well as knowing is when you're one, when you're being moved to someplace you didn't plan on going. Just go with the flow. Thank you. God bless you.